Hey there, youth and youth families, and welcome back to this time of Table Talk. This week, we are going to talk about the spiritual discipline of Bible reading. And let me start off by asking a really basic question. Why is Bible reading so important? Well, let me give you three thoughts. One is, we all want to know God, right? And sometimes it's tough to get a really clear picture. We can't really see him, and it seems that everyone around us has a bit of a different idea of what God looks like. And so one of the best things for us to do is to pay attention to this pretty comprehensive and God-breathed and inspired collection of thoughts and accounts and descriptions of him, and that's the Bible. Next, we all want to know how to live life. I don't know about you, but I feel like sometimes I am bombarded with thousands and thousands of questions and decisions every day. And life can feel a little bit foggy at times. It's pretty amazing that the Bible, even though it's thousands of years old, is still relevant in giving us practical guidance on how to live. In a lot of ways, you've heard it compared to maybe an instruction manual for life. Finally, we all want to find some sort of connection to meaning and purpose in life. And beyond all the instruction that the Bible gives us, the rules, the guidelines, that sort of thing, I believe the Bible conveys a very personal picture of what it means to be human. And it conveys real accounts of real people and what we can learn about what this being human means, both being human and being a spiritual being that wants to be connected to God from these real life accounts. So let's ask perhaps a bit of a harder question then, is what are some of the common mistakes that we make when we set out to develop this spiritual discipline of Bible reading? Because from what I've heard from a lot of people, this is a struggle, and it's a struggle for me as well. So what are some of the common mistakes that I've kind of observed? Well, I think one of the things that we often all start out trying to do is to just set out to read the Bible cover to cover, front to back, and read the whole thing. And that isn't wrong at all. But one thing that we should know is that the Bible wasn't really put together in chronological order where it necessitates reading it from the beginning to the end in that sort of way. Instead, the Bible was actually assembled when they put it all together by genre. So books that had something in common with each other. Interestingly, you would think that Genesis is by default the oldest book in the Bible because it tells the account of creation, right? And that is kind of the oldest part, but actually like a book of Job would fit somewhere in there, and it actually was one of the first books of the Bible written. It's just some interesting fun facts. So you don't have to start at the beginning of the Bible. You could start in the book of John, or a lot of people start in Romans or in Mark, or even I like to just grab the book of Psalms, and read through some of that. There is no wrong place to start. The next mistake that people often make is they set out to read big chunks of the Bible all at once, trying to get as much of it in as a time so we can read the whole thing cover to cover. Personally, if you're anything like me, I forget a lot of what I read pretty well instantly. And so I find it's better for me to take a smaller chunk at a time. In fact, I might just read a chapter or two and give myself some good time just to really think about and remember it. Here's a practice that I sometimes do is I'll make it my goal to read a couple chapters every day. And sometimes I'll read those 2 chapters, and then the next day I'll actually go back a chapter, reread it, and read a new chapter. And then the next day reread one of those chapters and a new one. So in essence, I'm reading the Bible 2 times through for every time that I read the Bible. Something that people also might not realize, and one of the mistakes that we make is we don't realize that not every version of the Bible is the same. It makes a difference which one you select to read. And here's a few kind of pointers on choosing a version of the Bible to read. Something like the New Living Translation is much easier for people generally to understand because when they translated it from the original languages, they translated it thought for thought. So when they read something, they kind of took the basic essence of what that thought was and communicated it in English. Whereas if you were to take something like the King James Version or the New American Standard or even the ESV, is a little bit more focused on word for word. So if you're looking to really study and go deep and get the rich meaning of every word of the Bible, you'd want to grab a translation like one of those. It might be a little trickier to read because the language might not flow as easily, but it's going to be more true to the original languages. Sometimes you might want a completely different outlook, and that's where I grab something like the Message, which is a bit more of a paraphrase of the Bible, and so one person's kind of perspective on what things mean. It enriches your study time, sometimes making it easier, sometimes making it more accurate, but those are a couple of things that you should know about the Bible as you're setting out to read it. Finally, I think people often make the mistake of setting out to read the Bible alone. I think Bible study is the best and the richest when you're reading it together with another person, asking them what parts of the Bible are speaking to them, and interact on some of the things that you're learning. So let's get started with our Bible study. Let's start somewhere where it makes sense. Maybe start out by getting yourself a Bible reading plan. The YouVersion Bible on your phone apps is a great place to start because there's tons of different ways that you could read the Bible. You might have one that I like to do chronological studies, just because sometimes when I read things like some of the prophet books, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me unless I'm reading the historical part of the Bible that goes together with that prophet. I like that. There are Bible reading plans that does a little bit of the Old Testament, a little bit of the New Testament, a little bit of Psalms all together, and that gives it a nice little blend. So start with a good reading plan, or just start into a book of the Bible that's interesting you right now. If there's one of the books that kind of stands out to you, if you want to really dig into the story of Jesus, you might try Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. Or if you want to look at early church development, start with the book of Acts or a letter of that Paul wrote to the churches. Those are great places to begin. Next, let's just slow it down a little bit. Give yourself permission to read perhaps a smaller portion so that you can take time to really think about what you're reading. Go back to some of those things that we were learning about prayer and meditation and take a smaller chunk and really focus on it. Next, let's make sure that we've got a version of the Bible that we can read and understand. And this week in your special packages, like we did with the prayer one, you actually might get a double up here. We included a 4-color pen. I like to use my 4-color pen so that as I'm reading it, I'll make markings in my Bible. It is okay to mark in your Bible. One of the things that I find, and a lot of people find, is the more you interact with it and you decorate your Bible, the more you remember. So use that 4-color pen as you go along and mark up the passages. We'll talk a little bit about that tomorrow in some of the different ways that you can start doing that. Next, don't be afraid to do something different. Your Bible study habits don't need to look exactly the same as the other person's Bible study methods. You might do better reading at the middle of the day rather than the beginning or the end of the day. So take 10 minutes over your lunch break or something like that. Sometimes you might want to read it quietly. Some of my friends actually take it and they read it out loud to themselves and they say that's really great for them. And I like to just take my headphones and I like to listen and follow along as someone reads the Bible to me. So these are a bunch of different ideas that you can use just to get started. And one of the things I just want to encourage you with is you're not going to become a Bible study guru overnight. This is going to be something that's going to take a lot of practice. So give yourself some patience. And always feel free to ask questions. If you're interested to learn anything more about Bible study methods, the things that I'm going to cover are going to be coming from a book called Living by the Book by Howard Hendricks. And you can feel free to pick that up or even borrow a copy from me. So thanks for joining us again today and blessings on your day.